Welcome to the Road is Dead podcast, episode number 115. I'm your host, Rob Curtis, joined here in the studio with
Tim Strelecki.
Leah Sanda.
And we're all here.
We
nice. We are into whatever week we are in the CCC, but it's still cyclocross season, and we're doing our weekly thing. Thank you for everybody who's been chiming in either through email or through comments or, in person. We've been seeing a lot of you guys out there. And telling us they like hearing it every week, and they're happy we're back doing a semi-regular thing. So we're back at it. We all happen to be here in the studio here on Monday. It is Monday, November 4th. This is the week of our race. We're doing a doubleheader this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Come hell or high water, if it kills us, it sounds like. We've got all sorts of things popping up all over the place that are kind of getting in the way. But we will do the doubleheader, and we will make the most out of it. It's only been a few days since our last podcast, but a lot's happened. Yes? No? Yes?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, another weekend, another bunch of races.
So, and this one was a little bit more interesting. I know we talked about it in the last podcast, but Leah, you went up to Wisconsin. I went up to Wisconsin. Anthony went to Wisconsin. Brad Dash went up to Wisconsin. Who else? We had somebody else go. Somebody else we know went up to Wisconsin. Well, I know Wojtek Glinkowski went up to Wisconsin.
Steve
Fury went up to Wisconsin.
Anthony.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there was somebody else, I think, from later in the day or a different race. So.
You generally see a half dozen faces in Wisconsin when you show up there.
It was interesting. I mean, it was nice to get up there. We went up to not Wakanda,
Waukesha.
Waukesha to the Vern Valley
Sportsman Club.
Kern Valley?
Kern.
I don't know.
It said B. Yeah. I mean, they may.
Vern.
Hey, it's Wisconsin.
Stern.
They may pronounce it with a K. I don't know.
Kringle Cross, sponsored by the wonderful pastry Kringles that Wisconsin is so known for. That was the race. Yeah, and it has been an insane number of years. I want to say, I remember what year this was when my son was racing, because I remember being at a race in Wisconsin and Skylar Schneider was there racing, and she was still a little bitty girl. And I told Connor, and I'm like, she's cute and she's fast. You should go talk to her. And that was the last time that I raced in Wisconsin. So that had to be
a lot of years ago.
A long time ago, because my son is now 25. So.
I know I've raced in Wisconsin since, but the one memory I have of racing in Wisconsin popped up in Facebook not that long ago. It's a picture that Barron took when we both went up there, and it was like 12 or 14 years ago that we went up there. And that, I was like, oh, I know I've been up since then, but yeah, I don't get north of the border much. But we said that we were going. Some people were expecting us. We walked. I know I rode up, and I got the greeting from Rich that I always get. Whoa, you found your way across the cheese curtain. It's like, yeah, and I didn't even have my visa stamp this time, but they still let me in. I like racing in Wisconsin. Yeah. I always have.
It's good times.
I've never not gone there because I don't want to go out there. It's usually because it's either a really far drive that week, or I've just got other stuff going on and just can't make it up there. But I like their series. I like what they do. I like the courses. I've always liked the courses. This particular one's going to be regional championships for 25 and 26. It was one that we recently, quote unquote, approved.
That's good to know.
We quote unquote approved it by saying, yeah, no, we don't have an objection. That's kind of how it went. I still think, I know we talked about this a couple episodes ago. I think we need to put into writing some sort of criteria or agenda that we recommend to USA Cycling for regional championships. I would like to see the regions more rigidly defined. I would like to see a regional championship happen in each region. And I think that we need a progressive policy of slowly turning them into something you have to do if you're going to race at national championships. I believe that we should have a regional. You should have a regional champion. They should. I mean, we can make it a jersey if we want, but a jersey in name. And then all regional champions should be placed on the front row of their respective divisions at national championships. I don't know about elite. I think elite's pretty well defined, and to mess with that and add this regional bit is a bit confusing. But I think for juniors and masters, at least, I think that would be a good thing. And start instituting that. And obviously, anybody who did participate in regionals should get called up before those that didn't as a start. And then at some point, once it's become obvious that regionals is a thing that needs to happen and that people that want to race need to participate in it, I think that you shouldn't be allowed to toe the line in your respective national championship category if you didn't race in your regional championships. And almost as
interesting,
we say showing up for it as racing it, because let's face it, a lot of these fields don't have enough people in them, and or even at the national championship level, because it does become a regional kind of thing. It's like people just don't want to travel to it. But it would be nice to be able to say you can't participate in the national championship unless you placed in the top whatever at your regional championships. I think that's a stretch and a long way off, personally. But I would like to see benefits be given to those that do go to a regional and as a qualifier of some sort. I think it would be interesting. I think it would add an interesting dynamic to it and make the regionals kind of an interesting thing. Right now, regionals are just kind of a non-thing, in my opinion.
Oh, for sure. It's definitely a non-thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think we need to figure out a way to make regionals have a little bit more prominence. I don't know that I agree with it being something you have to do to go to nationals. It could be, I mean, right now there's just, not enough people really even participating in nationals at this point to really even need to have a qualifier.
I totally agree with that. But
so but so there's got to be another way to make regionals be more significant and make it have a little bit more weight to it, without it tying to you have to qualify for nationals, because I think that's its own.
I think it might be cool if you have a regional series, like I don't know how to explain it, but if you had you have the regional championship itself, right? And then if you had other races within that, like 5 or 6 races that you get points based, and then you go to regionals and do your regional thing, and then you go to nationals and do that. I mean, I don't know.
Maybe the regional, maybe the current standing regional champion from whatever the last region race was, it gets a front row call up in any race that they sign up for in that respective division. Like, it doesn't have to be at nationals, but just say, okay,
that'd be interesting.
You now can get a front row call up now for next year until the next regional championships, when you show up for your respective masters, whatever, at any local race, or have a jersey that they can then wear, kind of like a national type thing.
I don't want to interrupt, but do we do that now? Like if a national champion, I know it hasn't happened here, but it does with masters. Right. If we have a national champion that shows up at any of our races, because we do our call-ups based on the series criteria, which is, I believe, front row is based on series points.
Mm-hmm.
And then after the front row, it's
based on cross results.
Right.
But I don't think we have a thing for a national champion to
I don't think we do either. I think we should.
I think it should be.
I think it shows respect.
I missed that one.
Remember, except we all saw what Brian Modder did when he decided to show up to race. What was that? Indian Lakes one year?
Yeah,
and he showed up and had to start at
the
dead last back because he had no series points, because then the whole thing was based on the series. And he just plowed through to the front. It was in the lead.
He registered day of too.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And so he couldn't get slotted.
He ended up
in
the lead for half a lap.
Yeah, it was before half a lap, and he was in front.
It was not, because I was in that. Took him till at least lap 3.
To be in the front.
Mm-hmm.
But he was within the first couple riders.
Yeah, I remember that.
From starting dead last.
Yeah. No, I know. So
it's
amazing.
It's because of stuff like that. Oh, and also Sven, when he was here.
That doesn't count. That doesn't count.
When he started that
4 race.
That doesn't.
It was a 4 or 5 race.
Sorry.
That doesn't even count.
It was a 4-5 race, and he started at the very back. And I have video. There was almost 100 people in that field, and he started dead last, and he was within the top 3 or 4 riders within a quarter of a lap.
Yeah, because everybody also in that race knew that he was right behind him.
They did not. Most of the people did not. I have video going down and looking at all the riders, and they're just like, oh, well, you know what? And then there's a couple riders that are just kind of like, looking behind them like, holy crap, who's that? And I just remember there was an official that was standing next to the side that I knew obviously pretty well. And he was like, yeah, I can't believe we're letting this happen. And I'm like, you've got to. You can't.
I remember the officials debating that.
Whether or not it's legal.
And I forget, one of them was just like, all right, it's just... everybody just needs to look the other way.
Yeah, it's a once in a series thing. Just let it roll.
Like, really? Okay, we're gonna let Sven Nys jump into Cat 4 race. I think it's going to be okay. He knows
he'll take care of himself.
He can take care of himself.
He's not going to hurt anybody.
He even flubbed going up the side of the stairs, turned around, walked backwards on the race course in the race, went back, and then hit it again and cleared it.
I can't believe they didn't just
and again
throw him out for going backwards on the course.
What are you going to do? DQ him? I mean, come on. He pulled out before the finish anyway. He didn't even finish the race.
Yeah.
He was just out there to
show off
and have fun.
Well, and have fun.
Yeah,
and it wasn't about being.
He loved our atmosphere.
Everybody loved it.
Yeah.
I don't think a single person complained that he should not have been out there.
He loved our atmosphere, and he loved everybody hanging out and cheering and all the hand ups and how supportive and fun it was.
Yeah.
And he ended up in that race. I can't remember who ended up winning that, but he was riding with that guy, second wheel, and telling him like how to take the lines and like where to go.
Yeah.
Like during that whole race. I mean, can you imagine that?
That'd have been sick.
As a Cat 4 sitting there and you got Sven Nys riding
Swing
next
to
to you
your
going,
right.
No, go left. It was like, oh. I just remember hearing him like talking to him as they were on a different section of the course. And I was like, holy crap, that guy's getting a firsthand lesson from Sven Nys. But anybody who's watched the video online, it surfaces every year, multiple times a year of Sven riding up the stairs. That was at that race.
I feel like we need to put a link in the comments.
If I can find a good reference to one, yeah.
Because it was amazing. I know that reels and stuff have made the internet for a long time, but
yeah,
because this was a long time ago.
It was quite a few years ago.
Yeah,
8-9 years ago, something like that. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah.
Anyway, I do think that
2018.
Yeah, that sounds about right. That I do think that we should have some sort of concession in place for like a national champion or something like that if they ever show up to our series. I guess it's not a huge ordeal because it doesn't happen very often. But you kind of made my point, though. When you think of those two situations where you've got a rider of good quality that can start dead last and it doesn't matter, they're going to end up in the front very quickly. So that's my concern, because those that are going to be contesting a national championship, let's look at it. A regional championship is kind of a burden to attend for little to no payout. And if the payout is only you get a front row call up, if you win it, or you get seated before everybody else if you participate in it, is that enough to drive for? When most of these guys can go, if they're really that good and probably going to win it, can go from third row, because really none of these are all that attended, third or fourth row up to the front within half a lap, quarter lap.
I think it makes a difference if you get that call up at nationals.
I think it makes
it makes a huge difference if you get that call up at nationals.
I think it makes a big difference in your field. I don't think it makes a big difference in her field or any of the other fields that have that number of participants, because your field is one of the largest ones out there.
Mm-hmm.
But hers is one of the small, I don't want to say smallest, but it's one of the smaller ones. And a lot of the fields are small.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the way it is right now, I guess,
Maybe people would be more inclined to go to nationals than if they maybe snagged a regional championship and be like, oh, well, now I might as well go because I go to front row
That's the other part of it, I think, would really help.
Right.
I mean, a front row call up is going to help you whether you're good or not.
Agree. Yeah. Obviously,
front row call up at a race of at a national championship event is certainly something you want to have. And I think a lot of people that are going to compete at national championships strive to do whatever they can throughout the course of a year to make their points better, so they get that.
Very true.
Because I know when I went for it, I stressed out on trying to make my points as good as I can, and what's the best way I can make my points as good as I can make them so I get a front row call up. And I think there's a protocol in place now, and pardon me if I get this slightly wrong, but I think it's the current national champion gets a front row call up. If the national champion from the age group prior ages up into that category, he gets a front row. He or she gets a front row call up, and then it's the top 5 from the previous year's event get the front row call up, and then everyone else, points wise.
So, did I ever tell my funny story of my front
I don't
row
remember
call-up at
laughing.
nationals?
I don't remember laughing to anything you've said.
I don't know if I ever shared this
probably
with
not.
you, Tim. My
No,
front row
I don't
call-up
know.
at nationals.
Nope.
So my first year racing cross was 2007, and I went to nationals. Cyclocross had not really exploded yet into a big thing. So I go down there and I race. I forget how many women were in my field that year, but it was small. You know, it was, I don't know, maybe 14.
2 rows.
Yeah,
2.5
exactly.
rows.
Like 2 rows. And it was a mud fest. It was Kansas City. And the second year was Kansas City, 2008. I also went. And I finished 7th out of 14 in my age group in 2008. 2009 Nationals is in Bend, Oregon. And I'm thinking, top 8, that was the rule back then, top 8 from the previous year get a front row call up. And I'm like, well, heck, I might as well. It sounds fun and a fun adventure. I'm going to go to Bend, Oregon. I've never been there before.
Nice.
So I go to Bend. And at some point, I am looking at the pre-reg for my field. And there were 44 women pre-reg for my age group in Oregon. And I'm like, oh my God, who are all these people? I start like internet stalking to figure out who they are. And like 80% of them have no USAC database because they're mountain bikers.
Or they're back in Orba.
And exactly. Right. And I'm just like, oh no, I don't know what's about to happen.
Yeah.
So I show up. The previous year's national champion, I believe her name was Wendy Williams. She gets the front row call up. She's number 1. I have a photograph of this too. So of the top 8 the previous year, I am the only other person that showed up to nationals in Bend, Oregon. So I was number 2 call up. I roll up.
Take it out.
I'm like acting all like I belong here. I belong here. I'm acting super cool. I'm not going to look around and look like an idiot and be like, oh my God.
You hand your jacket to an invisible swan.
I'm like, I've got photographs. I look totally chill. Like, and I'm just like, keep your shit together. Keep your shit together. Keep your shit together.
Don't let them know how scared I am.
Like, oh, okay. Race starts. And I proceeded to go backwards, crash. It was icy as fuck. The whole course was just slippery and icy, and I crashed hard. Fucked up my front brakes, and at one point I went to go slow down to hit my brakes, and I had like my cannies like disconnected or were fucked, and so I had like, and I slid right into the back of a girl coming, and I was just like, it was a super hot mess, but I finished 21st.
Wow,
nice.
That's pretty good.
Nice.
So, I survived.
Yeah,
I couldn't tell you last time I finished in 21st, let alone national championship.
So that was just like that was the last time I did nationals until hopefully this year I'll be doing it.
Sounds like my first experience at nationals in Kentucky when I went. Oh God, what a nightmare.
Which one? 2019, 2018?
The first year they were in where they're currently at Joe Creason. So I think it was 2018. I think. Yeah. With the heavy mud year.
That was 2019, I think.
It was 18-19. That's the year they had 2 nationals in 1 year. Yeah. That was a terrible experience.
Yeah, I was wrong. I was going to say that. I know you guys are shocked to hear that, but I was going to say that I've never finished that high. I finished that high this weekend.
Yes, you
I
did.
finished 14
Yes, you did.
out of
30 something, right?
36 or so. I don't know.
Look at you, front half of the
30-somethings.
field.
Yeah.
Yeah, you liked the course.
I like the course. I had no problems with the course. I know you weren't a fan of the course, and Brad wasn't a fan of the course.
I like
Say it.
flowy courses.
Why?
Say it.
I will admit I like flowy courses. This was not a flowy course.
It wasn't.
I didn't, so, but I am so glad I went up there. I am so glad I had an opportunity to race on a course that was not a flowy course, because it made me realize really darn quick that there's a few elements of technical turning in some of this stuff that I was having a hard time getting traction to slow down for a couple turns, and I screwed up a couple turns in the first part of my race. But
it's a really interesting venue.
Liked it.
I liked it. It's sketch for a lot of people. It's got a lot of really deep gravel all over it, and it's soft, and there's a lot of transitions between deep gravel and then jumping off a road or turning on.
I had no issues with any of that. I thought that was smooth. They didn't make you turn in gravel or anything.
They were right. They set it up really well. Somebody, I can't remember who it was, and I apologize if you told me this, but somebody told me that they went up the previous year, maybe, or in the past, one of the first years they did it, and they had turns that were kind of set up on gravel. And so that's gone. They set it all up so you could cut across a gravel or slowly come onto it pretty much everywhere, which was good. I know somebody was complaining of just that that's all it was. It was turns, just turns and turns and turns and turns. That being said, I liked it. I liked the flow of it. The only thing I would change if I was doing it is I would add maybe 20 to 25% of that course. I would kind of move over to the flow category, and just to give it some flow intermixed in between the heavy technical sections. There was nothing. I don't want to say heavy technical. There wasn't heavy.
There was just turns that were just
you had to think
tight.
about. Yeah.
And slow.
It was slow
for everybody.
Yeah.
There was no way you were going to move through it fast because it was super narrow and tight and just kind of awkward.
There were good 3 or 4 long sections where you could pass people.
Yes.
And they were physical fitness tests.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
But in general, just different racing up there. I got that position. I am not going to lie. I got that position because it was a soft field. It was a 50 plus, and that's not an insult to anybody. I mean, if you look at the field setup, it just, it was a 50 plus 4.5. I have not gotten to race a 50 plus yet, period. My racing age is 51. My calendar age is 49. So I'm not even 50. I got to race a 50 plus field, and it was a 4.5 field at that. So, and I looked at if you go by cross results points, pretty much the whole field was like 500, 600, 700 points. It was, I haven't seen numbers that high, to be honest with you, down here. I'm like the worst numbers, and I was in the 400s at least for a little bit, a couple of weeks this season. Now I'm back above 500 again, but or close to it. But so it was. I knew it was going to be interesting when I looked at the predictor and I was ranked that high, and not that the numbers really mean anything, but I was telling Anthony, why do I really care about the numbers? And it's because I want a good idea whether or not I'm actually getting any better, and I don't have any objective way of doing that. I can sit there and say, well, I think I'm getting better, but it is nice to be able to look at something that's kind of objective and saying, oh yeah, no, this says I'm tending to operate at a better place than I was last year or the year before, because I don't have, top results to be able to look at and go, okay, well, I won that or I didn't win. You know what I mean? Like, I won only 4 races this year instead of 5.
Yeah.
I don't ever have that. So, and I can't go by, oh, I placed 30th instead of 36th, because what if the field wasn't as big, there's a lot of factors to it. So I do like the points from that standpoint. I do have the problem of staring at it too much and then looking at it and going, well, why is it scored that way? I should have got better points. Anyway, all I know is that I got a 14th place, one of the highest positions I've gotten in God knows how long, and my points went the wrong direction. And the only explanation for it is because of how soft the field was there. But interestingly, so general differences I found in racing in Wisconsin in that particular field. Maybe it's different for other fields, but whatever. I was called up third row maybe, and when we started, it was like it was slow mo. They didn't take off like at all. A couple people kind of started going, and then it was the nicest, most civilized start I've ever seen in my entire life. Everybody was just kind of like, "Oh no, go ahead, yeah, you're good." Say sorry,
It's 50 plus.
It was so weird.
Oop.
Yeah. And then I kept riding, and I was like, "Is this really the start?" Because I can mash, and so I just started going up gears and just started wiggling around people and going. And pretty soon after the start, they had a 180, and you would go into the barriers, or one barrier that you easily could have jumped. But no one in our field was really jumping it. Maybe one or two people. But I noticed, because it's a log jam at that point, we're still close to the start. Everyone is in single file going into it. I was just like, this is so weird, man. And everyone's like in single file and just kind of, okay, you're good. Oh, sorry. Yeah, all that. I mean, it was just the weirdest thing.
Give me the inside.
And he got off and remounted. And everyone's like, oh, sorry. Yeah, no, we're good. Yeah, go. It was just so strange for me. And I found myself getting in line behind people coming up to a turn going, I could blow by almost everybody here. And it dawned on me after a while. I was like, yes, I can do that. I can blow by like 4 people and cut the inside of the corner. I'll probably have to make contact with somebody doing it. But I'm going to be that fucking Illinois bastard, that fib that comes up there. Who is this guy? That's all being an asshole out there. And it would be me, So I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do that.
Nothing wrong with that.
Well, I get it. I had you in my head going, fuck this, be more aggressive. And
I'm telling you,
I was thinking about
you could have been in the top 3 halfway through the first lap.
Well, I ended up when it stretched out a little bit more, I got aggressive and made a lot of passes I didn't think I would normally make. So I was happy with it. It was fun. I'm glad I went up there. We went with Steve Fury was up there, and he let us use his tent, which is nice. It was nice for me to go to a race and not have a tent, not have any gear that I had to take care of. It was just me, my bike, and my clothes.
Yeah, it was nice for you guys in the morning, probably, because it was pretty darn cold.
It was very cold, so it was nice that he set up the tent and let us use it. At least we were able to change inside of that.
Nice.
But it was a good venue. I like it. I like going up there. Very interesting, different style of racing for sure. And for those that are in Wisconsin listening to this, and I know you are, what I mean by it was different. If you race down here at the start, there would have been a lot of elbows, there would have been a lot of contact, and there would have been a few fuck, or what the fuck you, that's what goes on in our races. And into the corners, people would have T-boned each other and like grabbed bikes and pulled them and, gotten past people. That's how we race around here apparently. But, I think we're actually kind of nice now in the 45 plus. It seems like everybody's pretty cool. I heard some people yelling at the start back in Bartlett, and then I realized it was Waleed, and he was yelling at Dan Malik, and then I realized they were just kind of joking around with each other and having fun,
jawing each other.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we're all good natured, but yeah, no, we're gonna stick you in the corner. That's for sure. I don't know. Was your experience any different?
What did you race? Cat 3?
I did it's a combined Cat 3-4 with the women 1-2 that start first, and then a delayed, like, I don't know, maybe 30 seconds. I was overly amped, I think, at the beginning. I think I was overly frenetic, I guess. Came into that, I took off, I moved up. I had a hard time getting going. I was in too easy of a gear, so I didn't have good speed, and I had to like get on the pedals and then shift up a couple gears right away. So it took me a minute to really get going, and then I shot up to third wheel pretty easily. And then I was like, all right, this is good. I'm going to sit here and see what happens here. Mm-hmm. And we came into that left-hand 180, and the girl I think that won a junior girl, she came around me on the right and then came into the turn, and I was on the inside and she was on the right, and we're doing this turn, and then I was just like, oh, she's not really leaving me a whole lot of room here. And I went to grab some brakes to scrub some speed, and all I did was slide, and I slid right into her. And I was like, oh, shit. And we're like trying to get our bikes untangled real quick and, and get over the barrier and get back on and get going. And then I was just like, I was a little rattled. I'm like, oh, what the hell? Why didn't my bike slow down? Why didn't I have any traction? And then shortly thereafter, there was another turn that I tried to make some passes coming into the turn. And I came around the turn and I had to scrub a little bit of speed. And again, I just slid and I slid right into the course tape. And I'm like, son of a bitch.
What was it? Did you figure it out? Was it just traction?
I just had no traction. I had no traction. And I'm trying to balance my braking between the front and the rear because I know I had a Griffo in the rear, which really doesn't grab shit.
Yeah.
But I have that Flandrian on the front. So I'm trying to get a little bit. It's just nothing. I had no traction. It was just loose on the surface. And I at that point, a bunch of people got past me, and I quickly found myself in like 7th place. I was just really mad at myself at this point. I'm like yelling at myself in my head. I'm like, come on, Leah, get your head out of your fucking ass and figure out how to ride your goddamn bike. You're making ass of yourself. And you look like you have no idea what the hell you're doing. And I'm like, just get your shit together. So I calmed myself down, and then I started really focusing hard on paying attention to the surfaces and what I needed to do to set myself up for turns that I just wasn't used to, and the surface being a little awkward at times. And I was fine the rest of the race. I had no issues the rest of the race, and I was able to work my way up. I got past a couple riders. I finished in 5th.
Nice.
I felt like I rode strong. I struggled on the climbs, and I want to say it's not like they had big. I don't know how to describe the climbs.
They were punchy, I would say.
They're punchy, little
short,
punchy.
But
I
often.
just felt slow relative to everybody around me, and I'm like, is it me, or am I riding my normal pace up these, and everybody else is just that much faster than me? I wasn't really quite sure, but at that point, you're just riding, you're racing your race, right? And so that was my race.
I think interesting on that, because I think I told you I had a different perspective on the climbing bit, because I expected to come up there. I can't climb, but apparently I've been quote unquote climbing well for me this year. I went up there, and with all those punchy ones, I found that I was out climbing most of the people that were there. And I don't know if it's just, the field I was in, or if it's just because most Wisconsin riders to me always climb way better than we do.
Yeah.
They just have more hills. They have that elevation thing. So I found it interesting. I think I did really well in the climbing. They were my kind of climbs, so that's why I call them punchy. I don't think they were very long.
I don't think it was this punchy ones. I think there was 2 places on the course that was a little bit more, that was longer.
Yeah.
Where you're more false. I wouldn't say false flat, but a little bit.
Yeah.
Longer.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah. One towards the back where you head towards the back. And then another
is that the
one
where you ended in the 180?
The bumpy turn that kind of went up around it. Yeah. And then there was one heading back the other direction when you're along the when you're trying to ride not in the gravel, and everybody was riding on the left edge on the grass, and it was like slightly uphill, and then you hook a left, and then you had a little bit more climbing to do, and it was just like it was a longer stretch that I could see the girl that finished ahead of me in the race. She wasn't that far ahead of me, and I was so frustrated that I couldn't really, there were times I closed in on her, and then she would get away, and then she would open that app up, and that kept that gap would shrink and expand and shrink and expand. And I was like, come on, Leah, get there, get there. And then they gave her one to go, and they finished me.
Oh.
I was right at that cusp. It was right at that cusp, and I'm like, I don't know if I would have been able to catch her if I had been given one more lap, but
you would have liked the shot.
I would have liked the shot,
Yeah.
but I also knew I'm looking at the time in the race, and I'm just like,
that was the other thing. I don't know if you noticed.
I'm going to get another lap here.
We did the pre-laps, long lap, very long lap. while we were riding pre-lapping, I was going, this is like a 9.5 to 10 minute lap for me. And I don't know if it ended up that. It was probably a little bit shorter than that at race pace. But I was sitting there thinking to myself, it's a shorter race here too. It's only half an hour instead of 40 minutes. So I'm like, if this is somebody at the start was like, how many laps do you think we'll get? And somebody was like, oh, I think we'll get like 5. I was like, there's no way we're getting 5. I go, if we are running fast and they let us, you might get 4 laps. Otherwise, we're going to get 3. We got 3 laps. They call us at 3 laps.
My lap times, once they added in the afternoon add-ins on the course, was like 10 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. It was too long of a lap for those race times. It just didn't kind of mesh well, in my opinion.
30 laps.
Because I could have used, like you, I could have used at least 1 more lap, if not 2 more laps, to try to stalk people and like really reel them in. Because I really kind of felt like, for me, I don't really get my mojo until I'm like 3 laps in, or seeing the same feature at race pace like 3 times, and then really kind of get it dialed and know how I want to hit it. And I start hitting everything faster. That leads a little bit into yesterday's race, because that kind of happened to me in yesterday's race. But in general, final thoughts on Wisconsin. It was fun to go out there. I'm glad to go out there. Thanks, everybody.
Super glad I went. I am going to be looking at potentially getting up to
for anything else that's soon that's near us.
Camrock in 2 weeks.
Camrock
2 weeks
is good.
And that's the day before Wheeling, yes?
Correct.
Yeah.
Hey, if it's close, I might be interested in going.
It's
especially
Madison.
with that
It's Madison.
It's like an hour and a half. It's on. You pass it on the way to Trek.
Okay. Especially considering that's a 50 plus 4-5.
Then you go do Wisco Champs the day before
And that's the day before
Quartercross.
Forge. Yeah.
So there's that.
Oh, interesting.
And that's
Yeah,
on
we'll have
Trek.
to see how weather holds up now that we're into that part of the season.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's Wisconsin. I know we all had fun going up there. Anthony really loved it. Anthony did a good job. He finished 11th in his field, got a front row first call up. He was the first person called up, and he missed it because he wasn't really ready for it. So he missed his call up. He ended up rolling in like 2nd or 3rd, something like that. But he was like, wait for me to get the one time in my life I get a first call up and I fuck it up.
No, but he had a good start. He was, I think, 2nd in the whole shot, I think he said.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. And then I think I didn't really get the full rundown from him, but I think he made a couple of errors.
Yeah.
That's what he said. I talked to him briefly through messaging, and that's what he said.
But he had a good finish.
He was definitely glad he went up there. We talked about that pretty extensively on the way back.
Yeah, which makes me happy because he impaled himself on a fence on Tuesday night on our ride. So the fact that he recovered from that quickly enough to ride hard was.
And to kind of give that one justice, while he seemed okay during the group ride, after I dropped him off at home, he ended up going to the hospital and getting an X-ray and a CT scan. So. But he was okay enough that he went up and raced, and he raced yesterday or Saturday as well as yesterday. So he's making a go of it.
Yeah.
He was all sad. He didn't want to, miss races, and I get it. I'm at that point now.
Yeah.
Which is also why I don't try to take risks at stuff,
right.
Especially on jumping barriers. Somebody was talking to me about, we mentioned it in the last episode, and somebody was talking to me about it this weekend. They're like, yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. Not wanting to go for it and get hurt. So, but that takes us. So Anthony and I we drove up there in the morning, woke up at 4:30, went and picked him up, drove up there. We were the first race of the day. We hung around for a little bit. It was nice to kind of hobnob, talk to the Wisconsin officials. We know them all. But it was nice to actually see them. Mm-hmm. Steve and I walked up to the trailer, Rich and, oh gosh, I can't think of her name right now. Caulfield is her last name.
Susan?
Yes.
Yeah. And
we walked up, and they're both sitting there kind of with their stocking caps on and everything, looking kind of cold, sitting on the stage. And Steve goes, geez, I don't know how you guys do it. You don't have any tents or sidewalls or heaters or anything. And she didn't even miss a beat. She just looked down and goes, well, yeah, that's because we're a lot tougher than you Illinois officials,
Nice.
And she didn't even miss a beat. And she's like, oh, yeah, no, we're way tougher up here, It was awesome.
They just sit on that flatbed trailer.
We both, Steve and I both just kind of went, yeah, I got nothing to say on that one. that
Yeah.
definitely. So it was fun to see everybody. We jumped back in the car. We drove back right to the shop, loaded up all the gear. Had to unload the car of all the stuff, load the gear in, put the bike rack on, put all the bikes on, drove straight to Campton to the course. By the time we got there, it was like 2:45, 3 p.m. in the afternoon. And we set up our 4 tents plus the South Chicago tent. And then at the same time, ABD tent was getting set up. So, and got all the sidewalls on, camp kind of set, and then jumped on the bikes and did a couple preview laps. So, which was fun. Campton, for those, I love the Campton course, one of the original CCC races. I've been out there a lot of years. First race that I was able to really help with was that race back in 2008, I want to say. I remember walking up to registration, and it used to be we would have like a picnic table there, and you would sit at the picnic table, and you had a money box there and numbers, and that was it.
Nice.
You just wrote people's names on the start sheets, because you'd have a sheet for every category, and you just write their name in, check their license, put their license number in, and that was the order they got called up in. Or actually, we didn't even do call ups. You just cat force in the line.
Yeah,
everybody just kind of rushed the line. You start 30 wide.
Back in the Wild West, where everybody started hanging out at the start like 20 minutes before, so they could have mad rush to the line.
We know at one point we got to 2 races before our race is when we would be lined up.
Yeah,
we would have to line up to the side. The officials would get pissed because we were blocking staging.
Right.
But anyway, so I love getting out there. Eric and
Matt.
Paradis.
The crew out there, they do a great job. Had a great setup. They ran it backwards this year, or backwards, the other direction. I don't want to say backwards because they run both directions all the time.
Counterclockwise.
Yep. Fun course. I liked how they had it laid out. Good features. We were under the assumption that Sunday would be all rain all day long. And even when we were out there doing pre-laps, it kind of looked like it was going to be rain. Last minute before we ran down there, I grabbed some of my Limas tires, 38s that I had on aluminum wheels, and had to change axles real quick and everything because I didn't even set them up for this year yet. And we took them out there. We did some pre-laps. Everything was good. Went home, passed out, woke up the next morning again at 4:30 to drive down there and get all the gear out and pick Anthony up and get out there and get ready to race. And we had to make decisions. The weather had changed overnight. It looked like it was going to start raining during the first race of the day. At that point, I'm already on the trainer, so I got to have my bike ready to go. So I had to make the choice on what I was going to run before I even, any rain started. So I threw those Limas on and decided I was going to run them. Luckily, I did a couple pre-laps on them. Didn't feel like I was paying a penalty for it, and felt like I really got a ton of side bite on them to the point where I was definitely running them for it. Also, with the aluminum rims, I knew, because there's a bunch of small, I don't want to call them logs. What would you call them?
Railroad ties.
Well, there's a railroad ties going up.
Yeah.
That you could bang them on, and then there was the little barriers, like 2x4 barriers,
tiny little it's like a
2x6 or whatever. But
yeah,
they're little barriers that you can just roll 1, 2 over them. That I do, but I'll slam the rear wheel on them if I'm not, if I'm going a little bit too fast. But I had I had the aluminum wheels, so I was like, hey, this is awesome. Put a little bit more air in because I got extra traction, and I know I'm going to bounce them on a few ties or these boards. So worked out great. I was able to have a good race. It didn't end up raining during ours or the previous race, so I was definitely over tread for that. But it allowed me to push a lot of turns harder than I think I normally would. But good. Michael Kirby came back.
I saw him out there. Yeah.
And he was registered in our field, and he lined up in the back because he came in late or whatever.
Right.
And we were talking, and somebody's like, "Hey, why are you back?" or whatever. And he goes, "Well, I heard that Rob got in shape, so I had to see if I could hold his wheel." And I was like, "Thanks. Yeah, you're gonna have to slow down if you want to ride with me, But he lined up right around me. Long story short, had a lot of battles, a lot of fun, passed a lot of people passed me. And before I knew it, he was dressed up in a Waldo costume? Where's Waldo? And before I knew it, as we're riding through the lap, I hear people go, "Hey, Rob, go on, Rob!" And then right after that, I hear, "Oh my God, there's Waldo!" So he was right behind me pretty much the whole race. And about halfway through, I started thinking to myself, I got a small chance of actually beating Kirby in a race. That has never happened for me. So then I started to get serious. And then it was like, all right, now I started thinking about lines, and I realized the third lap in, I was exhausted, just exhausted from racing the previous day, all the travel and everything else, that I was getting mentally tired. So I was finding that I was starting to overcook stuff, carrying too much speed and things, not setting up for stuff. And I remember making a mental note, like, remember, you got tired in the third lap, so I could look at the times and stuff later to see if anything happened. And then we started getting into the last lap. I thought we were going to have 2 more laps, and because they kept saying two to go, 2 to go, 2 to go. And then as we came through, we got the bell. And so I was like, oh shit, okay, they cut us 1 lap. And I'm like, so we're going to get caught. How dare you? We're going to get caught in this lap. I'm like, so we only have 1 left. That's fine. Because at that point, instead of being like, oh, I need the 2 laps so I can catch the next person in front of me, instead of that, I was thinking, I need only 1 lap because I got to stay in front of Kirby. I just got to finish in front of Kirby here. So I kept on it, and sure enough, we get towards 3/4 of the way through the lap, and I'm turning around looking, and I see other riders back, and I saw somebody in a Burnham kit, and I was like, that's got to be Knopf. So he's coming in on us. And we came through those little boards, and I was turning back uphill, and I heard behind me, Jason's, expression basically go, there's Waldo, as he came by. And Michael's like, hey, Jason, and they're talking, and he comes up and he goes, finally made my way up to Rob this time, and he comes, I like point to the side. He goes riding past, so that's the first time he's gotten me this year. I did get lapped like 2 races ago or whatever, or at Bartlett, but this is the only time that he's caught me. So it was fun. It's just like old times. But he caught me at the tail half of the second lap, or last lap. And we made it through this hard part, and I'm still trying to stay in front of Kirby. And then sure enough, freaking Todd Wendell must have been riding in second. And he starts coming up, and I've complained about it before, but he's the absolute worst out of any field I've ever ridden in at any point in time at yelling that he's coming up. Basically, if you're coming up on lap traffic, yeah, it's cool to let them know. That way they can give you a place to go in the turns. But quite honestly, to expect the lapped rider that you're coming up on to completely stop and pull over out of the way when you're that far back is ridiculous. Just absolutely insane and ridiculous. So he calls it, and then he calls it again a few seconds later, and then he's like, come on, man. And it's like, if you're going to call, get up here. It's like, I'm not going to stop. I'm still going to the corner. There's plenty of room for 2 people to get around all these corners. And I was giving him the line, but I laid in, not a lot, a little bit. I was like, if you can't call it out 2 miles away and expect something to happen. I'm like, if you want it, you got to get here faster. I mean, that's all there is to it. And
good.
And Kirby was, and I was sitting there thinking to myself, if I had thought of it quick enough, I'd be like, dude, if you're chasing Jason, he's in a different zip code at this point. You might as well slow it down. You got less than a quarter of a lap left. Take it easy, man. You're not picking this win up. So we got through that, but as that was all going through my head, Kirby's in the back going, hey man, he's racing too. He's got a race that he's got going on, because he knew I was trying to stay in front of him, and I think because of that and what happened, I think Kirby let off a bit, because he was closing hard and he was going to end up getting me before the line. But I ended up staying up in front, and then I was going just absolute all holds, off. I wanted to stay in front of as many of those riders as I could. And I went through those woods as fast as I could on that last lap. I went over the barriers, got reconnected, got onto the gravel for the sprint, and I was all over the place coming down. I mean, it was so soft, and every pedal stroke, I felt like I was going to the other side of the path, as I was coming through. And I looked up in time to see you at the line, and you basically gave me the thumbs up. And at the same time, I don't know if you did this or not, but it looked like you went like, slow the fuck down. I think you're good. You're good. You don't have to keep doing that. You're not sprinting anybody. Because I was just like, I was happy. I stayed in front of him. I did my little victory, so I got my thing done. So
Nice.
I was happy
Yeah,
with that.
I could see the stars in front of your eyes.
Yeah, I was just like, I'm done. I just for everything here, man.
She
And it
wa-
was the fastest lap I did of the day, outside the starting lap. But so
Nice.
I had that going for me.
Your last lap should hopefully be your fastest lap, other than your, the start, which is generally always shorter.
Yeah.
Nice.
I know I've talked about this before, and it's been years, but here's my once again. If you're going to pass a lot of people, you got your way of doing it. There's some people that are idiots. I get it, and you got to call them out if they're being an idiot and won't let you by, or just being ignorant of it. But at some point, if you're passing a lot of people that have been doing this for a lot of years,
You just point at yourself, Tim.
Yeah, I'm not the nicest.
if you're passing a lot of people that have been doing this for a lot of years and have been looking back and know that you're coming, you got to have some faith. At least I'll say this: if you're passing me, I know you're coming, and I'm going to give you the line. But I'm not going to pull over on the side and stop. I used to do that, and that was when none of my results mattered, and I really wasn't racing for anything. I'd just pull over on the side and let people through. Now, at least, I'm going to rush to the next corner, and if you're not going to get me before the next corner just naturally, I'm going to try to bust through there so I can get out of the way so that everybody's got a good, clean line after that. But
yeah,
that's where I'm at on it. That's my public announcement.
Goddamn race leaders
for the day.
They suck,
I'll tell you,
man. A bunch of assholes.
So, speaking of which, how'd your race go?
Oh, I got second. First loser. End of story.
That's all you're gonna throw out there?
No, I mean it was good. It went as I expected. I mean, racing the 1, 2, 3 is different than racing the Masters. For obvious reasons. It's a good mixed field though. I feel like there's a lot of Cat 3s that are giving it a shot finally. There's some Cat 2s in there. I think I was I looked at the results and I was the only Cat 1 in the field, which shocked me. But, being a Cat 1, 2, or 3 doesn't.
So Roscoe's not a 1?
No, he's a 2.
What is the difference between a 2 and a 1 in cross? It's just still a points upgrade, right?
Yeah, I think it's
not like in road where you got to have some special dispensation or whatever.
Yeah, I think I don't know what it's marginally different. It's marginally different. It's not anything here. I mean, Roscoe probably has enough points to become a 1, but why bother at this point, depending on what his long-term goals are. Also,
I think if you're a 1 in cross, he's been racing the Cat 2-3 or the Cat 2 national championships, I think.
U23.
He's
been racing U23 the last couple of years.
Which one did he do
How
at
old
Kentucky?
is he now?
He's 20.
20.
Yeah. So, like I said, I went as I expected. When I saw the start list, I was like, all right, this is how this is going to go. And it went probably exactly as I figured it would go. Roscoe out front, I would probably be in second, which was pretty much how it went for the entire race. I mean, I knew Roscoe would be hard to beat. He's always been good at that course. And he, on the start grid, we were chatting, and he's like, "I love this course," and I was like, "Oh, great, good thing for me." But yeah, I knew he was all business when halfway down the start straight, he just kept up shifting, and I'm like, "Oh, he's on one today." So I got like a third place start. We came to the railroad ties, and Roscoe did his thing. I was debating whether I should pass the guy in second. In the railroad ties, and I'm like, I gotta go. Like Roscoe's on a mission. I got to stay with him for as long as I can. And bunny hopped the second railroad tie, passed the guy on the inside, and got by him clean, no contact. And Roscoe was just on another level. Like his MO was just to make it super hard, super hard for everybody and super hard for himself. Since he's competing in a very hard category at the national and the UCI level as well. So he's got to make the most of his 45 minutes. He did crash heading into, because he was, when we got out of the first little, as I call it, the corn maze, and then the first little twisty bit up on the plateau, there's you head out, what is that, on the east or south or west or whatever direction.
Yeah.
But going into the toilet bowl, I noticed like there was a gap, and then I looked down and I looked up, and he was a lot closer, and he was picking himself up off the ground. I'm like, oh, well, maybe I'll get lucky and his derailleur's bent and he's got to run to the pits. that wasn't the case. He stomped on his pedals and then continued to rode away. So I stayed in proximity for probably the first 2.5 laps, and then he was just super strong.
Yeah.
Stayed on the gas full time, and then that slowly, me chasing him, trying to match him, pulled me away from everyone else. So the gap probably from Roscoe to me by the end was the same as me to the rest of the field, which was probably about 40 seconds at the end. So I just basically rode by myself for a while, just tried to ride clean, not make any mistakes, try to figure out some things along the way, wonder why things are the way they are currently. And I probably lost quite a bit of time jumping that stupid tabletop in the woods.
It was awesome.
But if you're riding by yourself, you got to entertain yourself somehow, and you got to give the people what they want, especially at that little course.
We'll take a picture and make it the cover picture for this of you sitting on the tabletop.
It's fun. That course has always been fun, and that's always, for those of you listening that don't know about this course, there's a little wooded section that's got, some turns and some single rollers, a couple flat tabletops, a couple berms in there. And it used to be coined the Get Rad section back in the day. And, so it's always a crowd congregation spot to cheer everybody on. And there's, if you got the skills, you can do some things for the crowd. So I was like, this race is pretty much over, and this is in like lap 1 or 2. I was like, I might as well have some fun with this. So we started throwing, jumping some of the jumps and stuff like that. It was fun. It
was fun watching everybody come through there. That place is kind of the articulation. Have you ever seen the reels where people are like, what it felt like? And you see people like sailing off this jump, and then what it actually looked like, and it's people that just kind of go and do a little hop. Yeah. A lot of people were doing that, so it was fun. Everybody was trying to send it, but you did it. Roscoe did, and then Andy Hoyser, he was coming through. He did a manual.
I was going to do that,
kind of off that tabletop there on one lap. So it was definitely a crowd pleaser.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, it's good training. I'll take it. It's good training for when I go to Montrose and race Masters, and then go to Nationals hopefully and race Masters. So
yeah,
we'll see. For those of you listening that are in the local area, I'm not racing Masters at Montrose. I just wanted you to piss your pants a little bit right now. Don't worry about it.
I was gonna let it go. I was like, okay, that's new.
No, right. I mean, I'm not gonna be that guy that doesn't race it all year and then try to get in the mix and steal it from the dudes that have been racing it, the entire season. That was done to me back in 2016. I'm still salty about it.
Who was it?
I don't know, dude that used to be in the series when it was early, Chris Pike.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he came down. I guess he moved to Colorado, came back, and he and I battled the whole race, and he stole it from me, and I was pissed off because that ruined an undefeated season.
Nice.
I'm still salty about it, but I'm not gonna be that guy that does that. Besides, I'd have to start in the back, and I don't want to be
start in the back.
Yeah, I would.
We only do it first row is CX points or the series points. After that, it's all.
I guess, yeah.
Actually, it's not even series points because it's a national championship or a state championship. It's supposed to be all CXRs.
No, yeah. That makes sense. So I would have a first row call up.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll do it then. No,
I think you should honestly though. I think you should roll up while everybody's getting their call ups, like getting ready for staging. You should just roll up there last minute and just kind of sit on your top tube, but like waiting and just see everybody shit their pants.
What's up, guys? How you guys been this year?
No. What are you guys going to do for that one section back on the, what'd you think of that? Like just have people be like,
what kind of pressure
you racing running? This? You in this?
Yeah. No, I like that to me, that cut deep. So I don't want to be that. I don't want to be that guy. That's even if I bother going to Montrose. It's kind of close to Nationals, even though it's without any of those non-championship races earlier in the week, since the schedule for Nationals seems more streamlined. There is a possibility that that's a good like tune-up race for Nationals, being as I would race championship race would be on a Friday.
So on this note, Tim and Rob, I have a question. Is it generally kind of, is it acceptable, or does some people consider it to be poor form if somebody who is good enough to finish top 20 in an elite race shows up at nationals and pips the national championship and then goes and races their elite race? Is that cool?
Oh, you mean Masters?
But they haven't, Masters. And they haven't raced Masters all year. They've been racing elite races. They've been going to UCI races.
Dudes
and
do
racing
it. Dudes do it all the time.
elites. I know they do it all the time. Is that cool?
Used to not be able to. There was a rule against it. This is not even that long ago, but there was a rule that said you had to choose. You were either racing elites or Masters. And you had to pick which one you wanted to do.
Is that still in effect?
I believe they repealed that
Nope.
maybe 5-6 years ago, something like that. So I know that Laura Van Gilder, that's the first Masters national championship she picked up, was the year they repealed that. They allowed her to race Masters.
Okay.
And she absolutely destroyed everyone. I think that's the last time that she did it, though. Until she went to
But how do you
Worlds.
feel about it? How do you feel? Is it?
I got no problem with it.
I would frown upon it. I would frown upon it super.
Well,
I would
there's a
definitely frown
point.
upon it. I would definitely frown upon it. If you're racing UCI Elite all year and then you're just there for the jersey and disrespecting everyone that's been racing in the Masters field competitively throughout the entirety of their year, and you're just there to steal the jersey, that's kind of a dick move, in my opinion.
I mean, I understand it.
You have a right to it. I'm not going to say you don't, but
Does it fall
I think
kind
that's
of in the same realm then as sandbagging in your mind? If you're good enough to be racing at a pretty respectable level in elites to come do that, that's kind of
if you're actively racing as an elite, I would agree.
I would agree that's sandbagging. That's why you'll never see Brian Motter race a Masters national championship, because he's perennially top 10 every single year.
Straight up elite UCI.
Elite.
And
he never races Masters, anything.
Here's one to help put it in perspective. When Sid got her national championship in Masters, that was the same year Laura got hers. Mm-hmm. But when she got that, because we were talking about it, the fact that Laura was doing hers. And I pointed out to her, she's like, well, do you think there's anybody that's going to jump into my championship who's an elite? And I looked at it at the time. I was like, you realize that's going to be Katie Campton. If Katie decides to do Masters National Championship, she's in your age group. So you would be racing against her. Would it have been fair for her to race against Katie Campton for a Masters? No, not at all. I don't think it would be at all. So I guess I agree with you.
Is there a tipping point, do you think, that if you're
at that
consistently
young age,
in the back half of elites to then come over and maybe do nationals?
I think so. I think that would be the exception. If you're a Masters dude, like if I were to go and race UCI Elite or try to race UCI Elite, and that was my goal. I was going to do it all year, no matter what. And I kept getting pulled, the 80% rule, or maybe I finished 30th in one race. I would say, in my mind, I would go, okay, you're definitely not this level, you're Masters level.
Right.
So go race Masters at the national championship.
I agree. I don't have a problem with it like that. So I think, to your point, I think it does kind of set up the sandbagging scenario.
It's like a gray area.
And it's one of these, again, where we know what it is when we see it.
Right.
That's why there's no hard and fast rules on it. When somebody has the ability and the capability to just absolutely dominate, and then they decide to step down to dominate those that don't even have a chance. It's like the old Star Wars bit where they went in and killed all the kids that were learning the Force and all that stuff. That's what it looks like and feels like. But there's the difference when you're not doing that. When it's somebody that has a skill to push themselves and try to race in a harder race, isn't necessarily doing all that great. And it isn't a foregone conclusion when they, quote unquote, step down to race in the easier field. I don't think that's sandbagging at all. I think that's just them working in the category system that they have to work with.
If you're consistently in the top 10 or 15 in the elite UCI races, you shouldn't race your age division at a national championship. You just shouldn't.
So the sandbagging thing, we're in week 2 of the ChicagoCX.com deal. So far, I don't know. I don't think either one of them has upgraded yet. The original 2 that were announced, Wayne did not, for some reason, upgrade.
They're not going to.
I don't think he realizes it.
I wonder if he even knows.
I don't think so. I'm not sure. I mean, I saw him, and he's like, "Hey, how's it going?" He was in the Cat 5 race again.
Did you shake the flyer in his face?
No. I mean, it's time to have a rough conversation there, but or at least, hey, are you aware of this?
There weren't any this weekend, were there?
Well, there's an update to the site, but you have to click on. I can't remember what it is. You have to click on it, and they call out a bunch more people, and then they cover this week's races.
Oh,
or
I went on it the other day, and I was like, "This is actually fantastic."
Yeah, no, and he covers this week's races. We did get an email after the last episode
from the creator.
Yes, I don't know if I.
Nice.
I think I sent it to you guys.
I like when it calls the person out and it says, "Here's the deal."
Yeah,
and it explains why they need to upgrade. That was pretty funny. It's pretty. There's a good comedic value to it, But it's like we talked about last podcast. No one, if you don't want to upgrade or have no ambitions, you're not going to.
Yeah, for some of them, for sure. For some people,
it depends on what your goals are for cyclocross racing.
So here we go. Hi, Robin gang. As you suspected, a longtime listener and a big fan of the podcast here. Thanks for sharing your thoughts and perspectives. It was great to just listen in. And a link to the website. So there we go. There we have our answer. I know Anthony tried to do the basic sleuthing of trying to figure out what the who is information is.
Isn't that sleuthing?
And
I'm gonna get to
he's
the
like, I
bottom
got
of this.
nothing. And I got asked constantly, do you know who it is? Do you know who it is? Do you know who it is? I mean, I've got some ideas, but I mean, what's the point?
They're hiding in plain sight.
I hope I'm completely wrong and I'm not nowhere close to it. So I don't want to find out who it is, to be honest with you.
No, the anonymity of it is great.
It allows a much wider operating. I know Anthony was handed a flyer yesterday, and on the front of it was a Book of Mormon. So somebody dressed up as a Mormon, and a Book of Mormon thing, and on the back it said something about sandbaggers and Chicago CX.
Oh, so good.
And he went, maybe, I don't know, maybe, so we don't know there, but
there's going to be all these little clues dropped as to who it is along the rest of the series.
Yeah. I mean, there's a different, obviously there's a wide array of kind of this. It's just like heckling when it comes to calling out sandbaggers. There's a right way to do it and there's a wrong way to do it. I think that seems pretty obvious to most people, but some people, have to be drugged there kicking and screaming. I think it's out now, but there's been some activity that doesn't seem very savory along those lines when it comes to calling out sandbaggers. And like I said, it's just like heckling poorly. I mean, it sounds like they did the equivalent of just going up and going, "You suck," and as a form of heckle. Doesn't really work.
There's a line that you cross where now it becomes bullying essentially and harassment.
Yeah. So
and we reached that this past week.
That's unfortunate. I don't want to go into that. I don't know any of the details. I didn't see anything, but I have heard about it, and so whatever. Jury's out on that one.
Interesting.
But so in general, with that in mind, I will say, there's still people laughing and cheering and going, "Hey," you call people out, call them a sandbagger, whatever, while they're racing, and you're doing it with a smile on your face. After the race, we're still talking to them.
Yeah.
We're not saying you absolutely have to, upgrade, or it's just fun. We're just having fun with it. The one gentleman that I discussed that was a Cat 5 that bunny hopped the barriers, and all that.
Yeah.
And then said it was his first fucking race and all that
that
we talked about last week. He rode again in the Cat 5s and raced and was in top contention the entire race, and then wrecked right in front of us in the woods. And it was one of those. It was a legit move. I mean, no one was at fault there. That was just one of those racing things. There was some contact, and he went down, and which made me, kind of feel for him a little bit more. But he heard the message from everyone, and apparently Brad was working with him and talking to him. And the guy honestly didn't know how to upgrade, what an upgrade was, how to do it. And he said something like, "I requested my upgrade through Bike Reg." And well, that's not how you do it, folks. If you're trying to request your upgrade, you go to USA Cycling, because that's who gave you your license.
That's funny. That's funny.
But I get it. If you don't know anything about like what we're doing, and this is from a 5 to a 4, So Brad helped talk him through, and I got word this morning that he did submit an upgrade and it was approved. So
nice.
He has moved up. So
good for
kudos.
you. Good for you.
Congratulations.
We love you. Was he the cause of the wreck, or did someone wreck him?
I wouldn't want to point fingers. I really do think it was kind of a race situation.
Call it like you see it.
Yeah,
like
it was 3 people trying to get through the space that one person can fit
in the woods.
Yeah, over the tabletop. like it was like one person. There were 2 people trying to overtake him at the same time.
Oh goodness!
Like right as they landed from the tabletop.
That's not going to happen.
So I mean, it was 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. Something's going down, and he held his line, and he held what he was trying to do, and I got to give him props for that. So I think he raced well. Nice. But sometimes you get wrecked, sometimes you go down, But and he worked hard to protect his position. Now the other question is, every time he's been out front like that and racing like that with a huge gap to the rest of the field, he's not alone. He's got at least one other rider with him. Ooh. So whoever that other, and I haven't paid attention because quite honestly, that other rider hasn't been in front. But that second and or third place rider there that have been riding with him the whole time, guess what? You should probably upgrade too. Just throwing that out there. Anybody got anything else for sandbagging?
The sandbagging saga continues.
I think we're going to see this for the rest of the season, and I'm here for it. Hope to see y'all at as long as you do it in the right way, just like in heckling, like don't be an ass about it. Actually know what you're talking about, and do it in a good-natured way, like we heckle.
Never been good at it.
At what? Sandbagging or heckling?
Both.
I don't see you as a heckler. I really don't.
No, because I've been heckled before, and some of that shit cuts deep.
Well, that's the thing.
Especially when you're having a bad day.
Yeah, and there's a line. That's why I don't do it anymore. Really, to be honest with you, I'll do a little bit here and there, but the stuff that I do is the old stuff, like take it easy. It's not a race. That kind of thing. Yeah. It's an old one, but it's an easy one. It's not really that pointed, and it's kind of funny, and people get a little chuckle out of it while they're racing. The way that I heckle, it's not necessarily to entertain the people that are around me. It's to make the person who's racing kind of chuckle and get through the race.
That's the thing. I think if I heckle somebody, it's usually somebody that I know and know well enough to know what they will consider funny or not. And if I have any doubts, then I just, good job, keep it up.
Yep.
Up, come on, go. But every once in a while, I'll think of something funny for somebody that I know, and I'll throw it in there. Sometimes it might be inappropriate even, and I'll say it under my breath. But
if you say it quietly so only they can hear you.
That's the question. It's only a good heckle if it makes the person you're heckling laugh.
Yeah.
If they're going to find it funny.
Yeah.
There's
I'm not quick-witted enough to heckle.
I got one this weekend. I was going over those little barriers, and it was over by the pony shop set up, and somebody in the pony shop tent, because I slammed a wheel, rear wheel, and somebody in the pony shop tent went, man, be careful on those wheels, or take care of those wheels. And I was like, nah, I can fix them.
What was Brad telling us a story about last night that somebody in the pits yelled at Roscoe, and he went by and said, hey, can you fix my doorbell?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I think it was him. I think it was Brad that yelled that because he was in the pits.
No, Brad was saying that somebody else yelled that to him because I guess Roscoe does.
So Roscoe he's in the union or trying to become a union electrician. He's working in that field right now.
Apparently, it made him laugh.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So somebody threw that out there, like, "Hey, can you fix our doorbell?"
I got a Ring camera. I don't know how to install it.
I'm totally at a loss, man. 220, 221.
That's good to know. I got some faulty wiring in my house.
Yeah. So if you're in the Chicagoland area and he can do some work for you, let him know. But I don't think he's I don't know the levels of that, so I don't want to get into it. But that's what he's supposedly studying to do. So, and he's well studied. He seems really happy with what he's doing right now. So
yeah, he's destroying people.
Yeah, he's always happy doing that. He's got a little bit of that in him.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, anything else to cover? Our race is this weekend. By God, if you are anywhere within a 5-state region, you should be making your way over to Woodstock, Illinois this weekend. And that's going to be a phone solicitor, so I'm not answering it. Make your way over to Woodstock, Illinois. We have a doubleheader. We are racing on Saturday as well as Sunday. We have a plan for the maps. We know what we're going to do. What you're going to see on the preview isn't going to be 100% of what we're actually doing because we're going to the way that we do courses is we lay them out as we're there and we see the slopes and what we're dealing with in that exact moment. But the general flow is going to be one direction one day, the exact same course mostly, going the opposite direction the second day. So that'll ride like two completely different courses.
We will have a beer garden.
Yep.
We will have an awesome food truck. We will have a car show. So if somebody has a sweet, sweet muscle car or
any
old
cool
car,
ass car,
bring it, and we will buy you lunch.
We'll buy you lunch or buy you some. Well, we wouldn't buy you beer because you're driving home, that whole thing. This isn't Wisconsin. It's close to the border, but it's not Wisconsin.
So anything else of note?
Well, it's not just beer. It is all sorts of
mixed drinks,
multiple
wine,
beers,
sodas,
multiple mixed drinks, beverages, soda, water, everything. So that is your drink opportunity.
Is the puppy cross going to maybe?
That is happening. There's going to be a puppy cross. I don't understand what that is, but we are going. I don't want to say we. Carrie Kurth. Okay. For those of you who know Ty Kurth and Carrie, Ty's the perpetual medic at all of our events. He's helping coach the SLS crew of juniors this year. The parents of the Kurth twins, the boys that are absolutely crushing everyone's souls out there, and doing a good job with that. But she is running. She works exclusively with a lot of dog adoption programs and things like that. So there may or may not be a dog that's going to be out there for adoption as well too. So if you're so
it's a fundraiser for her for that.
You can win a shirt. I think she's got that worked into it. We are selling shirts for the event, by the way.
Oh, do we have a poster we can show on the YouTube here to hold up? Or
downstairs. You want to go down and get it?
Well, not within arm's reach.
So we had these really awesome posters made. Yes. So we are selling those for like $5.
No, it's $2. Oh yeah, no, it's $5.
$5 for poster. If there's any T-shirts left, we will have some T-shirts.
There are T-shirts for sale on the Bike Reg site.
Yes.
Of note, if you're going to register for our race, remember it's 2 days. There are 2 separate registrations and 2 separate pages on Bike Reg. It's just the way that it is, and that's so that they are set up the same way as every other race in the CCC.
And registration closes a day earlier than usual for both. So Thursday night for both races.
Don't let that trip you up. And that's going to trip up a lot of people, especially because they register last day for some reason now.
And I know 1,000 people are going to ask this, but no, you cannot use the same number from day 1 to day 2. We were
just the way that it is.
It is what it is.
We've had those arguments and we've lost.
It's not worth the massive amount of complication to line everything up from day 1 to day 2. So we're just going to tell everybody, sorry, you have to pick up your second number on Sunday.
Yep. And the other areas that do it, I'm not going to get into the discussion on it because I would like to use numbers more than one day.
But the course will look, some parts will be similar, but the top end is going to be completely different from what you're used to if you've been out there before, because of a
huge playground
that they built up on top of the plateau. So a lot of stuff is going to be moved and different. So please plan on allowing time to pre-ride the course.
And remember, we are one of the only races in this series that has elevation to work with because we're that close to Wisconsin. All you Wisconsinites who are thinking about coming down, I know there's a double race weekend up in Wisconsin this weekend. Ignore it. Come down and race our races. If you do, let me know. Send me a note or something, an email, and if I can make it worth your while to come down, I will. You know, I'm not above bribing. You know, especially if you bribe me with cheese and spotted cow or something.
Downtown Woodstock is super, super cool with a bunch of really neat restaurants and stores and stuff. So it's worth making a weekend out of it.
We went around the other day and we're handing out posters downtown and just talking to a lot of the business owners there. There are so many amazing little small businesses that are downtown on the square. And for those that don't know, the Groundhog Day movie was shot on that square there way back when. I know some people that grew up there that have pictures of them with the actors out there as they were actually filming it. So there's like 20 bakeries down there, little chocolate shops, and there's an Italian place. There's a hobby store, with trains.
Oh yeah, if you're into trains, model trains, oh my, you have to check out this model store. It's amazing.
And there are all sorts of little different businesses down there in the square. restaurants galore all over the place. We have a hotel there that we've set up a book of rooms, but I think those are done.
Yeah, that's
maybe.
all expired. But yeah,
Call the hotel to
call.
reserve. Don't go
physically
online.
call. Don't go online. And I'm not sure if they updated it, but it said they were unavailable. But if you called, they were able to book. So.
Yeah. So stay in the area. Make it a point to come out there. We're setting up on Friday. We'll be racing Saturday and Sunday. And if you want to see me after that for business reasons, I'm going to be unavailable for at least a day. So giving you that warning heads up now. Mm-hmm. Apart from that, anybody got anything else? I don't think so. Yeah. Thank you for listening. Get out on your bike and put some miles in and go attend your local series or ask if you can help out and volunteer if you're not going to race. So thank you very much and enjoy the ride.